I love the idea of falling in love, but when it actually happens, it can get really complicated. It can easily get messy and bring out sides of us that we weren't even aware of. This is why falling in love is like a mirror. It's a mirror that shows us how we attach, how we judge, and how we react. It reveals our patterns so that we can grow in awareness. I'm a meditation guide, and the way that I see it, falling in love is the ultimate meditation. In this video, I'm going to get into why that is and what we can learn about ourselves through falling in love. If you'd like to check out my guided meditation, the link is in the description below. So, the first thing that falling in love can teach us is how we try to control. I think that more so than any other relationship, romantic relationships bring out this need to control. We want to control the timing of the relationship, the outcome, and also the other person. We're very attached to this is my version of love, and I would like for you to fit into it. And this is what causes a lot of trouble in relationships because we cannot control other people, and it's really difficult to control the outcome of our relationships. But falling in love is a very vulnerable experience. We're exposed to the risk of being hurt, of being let down. And I think that's why we try to control so much because it's a form of self protection. In meditation, we become aware of the ways that we try to control our experience. And this is called the practice of non attachment. It's releasing control of our thoughts, emotions, and sensations. It's the awareness that attachment creates more misery. The effort that we put into controlling whatever we're feeling or whatever is happening around us actually makes us more miserable. So, meditation teaches us that non attachment is the only way that we can come out of that misery. It's the awareness that we have to loosen our grip. And I'm not very good at this, especially when it comes to falling in love. I have a very tight grip, and it's caused a lot of unnecessary conflict and drama for me. But I think that this in itself is a lesson because when we become aware of what we're attached to, we can then go into why. And going into the why allows us to discover what we're afraid of, what makes us feel insecure, what makes us feel vulnerable. And falling in love in itself is a vulnerable experience. So it really gives us insight into how we're trying to control that experience, trying to resist the discomfort of being in a vulnerable experience. Of course, it would be amazing if we could all get to the point where we are able to loosen our grip and detach from our expectations and let the other person be who they are, let the relationship evolve on its own. But I think just the awareness of how we're trying to control is enough to start off with. A lot of the times, we're not even aware of how we're trying to control, and we don't understand why the relationship is getting so messy and complicated. But when we become aware of how we're attached to things going our way, then it opens the door to new possibilities and to really understand ourselves better. The second thing that falling in love can teach us is how we judge. So, falling in love is complicated because it's two strangers coming together and trying to make things work. Two very different people trying to come to an agreement, trying to be happy together. So, I think more than any other relationship, romantic relationships cause a lot of upset feelings. They are prone to disagreements and arguments. And because of this nature of romantic relationships, we often fall into the pattern of criticizing or blaming the other person or even ourselves. So, in meditation, we practice observing the way we judge our experience, the way we criticize our experience, and practice releasing that and replacing it with compassion. And this is called the practice of non judgment. And we can practice non judgment in our relationships by becoming aware of how we are blaming the other person or blaming ourselves when there's conflict or disagreement. I think that it can become a lesson in practicing more acceptance for the other person, accepting them for who they are, accepting them for their differences, and also to accept ourselves. Recently, in my relationship, I was judging myself for being too needy, but that in itself is a judgment. And I realized that I was using very judgmental language to describe my own needs because I wasn't accepting my needs. I think I felt a little bit embarrassed about having certain needs. And I also felt a sense of fear in expressing those needs. And I learned that if I want to be loved for who I am, then I first need to accept myself for who I am and not judge myself for having certain needs because the other person needs to know what I need, right? So I think by becoming aware of how we judge the other person and also ourselves, falling in love becomes a practice of acceptance and compassion. Can we accept the other person for who they are? And can we have the courage to accept ourselves and show ourselves to the other person as we are? And the third thing that falling in love can teach us is how we react. So, falling in love brings up a lot of emotional reactivity. And by observing how we react, we can learn what we're afraid of, what we fear, and what makes us feel vulnerable. So, in meditation, we practice observing our thoughts and emotions, and we choose not to react. And this is called the practice of non reactivity. And when we apply this practice to our romantic relationships, it can teach us a lot about what triggers us to react and why. It can give us a lot of insight into our insecurities and our vulnerabilities, and also point us in the direction of the type of support and love that we need from not only our partner, but from ourselves. And by noticing how we react, we become aware of our habit patterns because usually our reactions are habits. We feel a certain emotion and we react to that emotion in a certain way. And without awareness, it's really difficult to break or change this habit pattern. I think that we can easily fall into the trap of blaming ourselves and criticizing ourselves, thinking, oh, why do I do this? Why do I act in this way? Why do I try to control the other person? Why am I so judgmental? And I think that's not the point. I think the awareness is what's important, and using that awareness for our own self growth. So, falling in love can actually become a great opportunity to become aware of our habit patterns, and it can guide us to change any negative habit patterns. So, falling in love is like a meditation because it shows us how we try to control, how we judge, and how we react. And this is exactly what we observe in meditation. So, no matter the outcome of the relationship, we can always be grateful to the other person for the lessons that they give us. And I think that the other person isn't there to solve our problems, to help us heal our wounds. They can do, but I think the relationship in itself serves as a mirror so that we can see what we can work on, what we can focus on within ourselves so that we can feel a greater sense of love from the inside. It's showing us where we need more love and how we can love ourselves with the support of another person. Falling in love can be really messy, it can get really complicated, but within all of that chaos, within all of that emotional turbulence, we can learn so much about ourselves. So at the end of the day, love is an opportunity to get to know yourself more deeply.